Meet toddler Charlotte Garside. She wears clothes designed for a newborn baby and weighs less than 7.5 pounds. And yet Charlotte is almost 2 years old.
Hello, you.
A lot of people say she looks like a porcelain doll. She just looks very, very delicate.
Charlotte and her family are about to embark on a journey to find out why she is so incredibly small. They'll face the fear of their tiny daughter undergoing surgery.
It's scary, I suppose. First time it being done.
Meet other families who also have children with restricted growth.
Yeah, she's only little, but she's the boss.
And they'll consult medical experts to get their daughter's extremely rare genetic condition diagnosed. Then they will know if Charlotte is likely to live into adulthood or die before the age of 3.
We could be looking at the last birthday that we do for her.
What does the future hold for the tiniest girl in the world? Withensea is a small seaside town just outside Hull in the north of England and is home to an extraordinary toddler. In this quiet street lives Charlotte Garside with her dad Scott, mum Emma and her 3 older sisters, Chloe aged 12, Sabrina 9 and 5-year-old Sophie.
Charlotte will be never taller than me.
I think Charlotte's perfect and I won't change anything about her.
She's probably the tiniest girl in the world.
We don't think that she's going to gain much more weight, to be quite honest. We don't think she's going to grow much more than what she is. Hoping she does, because I don't want her to be as small as what she is for the rest of her life.
Charlotte's extremely small but proportional body is the result of a genetic condition known as primordial dwarfism.
Primordial means that the condition has started early on in the pregnancy, and dwarfism, which means short stature.
See you later.
I'm surprised that my sister has got primordial dwarfism because there's no one else that I know of in my family has got primordial dwarfism.
All right then, I'll see you soon.
Both parents have to be carriers of the primordial dwarfism gene for them to have a child with the condition.
For children like Charlotte, what we predict has happened is that both parents have passed on the changed gene, and so she has 2 changed copies of the gene and no normal copy of the gene, and therefore this has resulted in her having the condition and being so small. So when 2 parents are carriers, it's completely normal to have a normal-sized child or children, and then the child with primordial dwarfism sort of comes down to the blue, really.
Charlotte has been small since birth, weighing less than 2 pounds. That's 3 times lighter than the average newborn baby girl. Now, despite being almost 2, she tips the scales at little more than 7 pounds, the weight she should have been at birth. She's only 22 inches tall, so children her own age, like her playmate Dexter, seem like giants next to her.
She's grown nothing really. Compared to what you'd expect a normal 2-year-old to measure at the age of 2, she is still newborn size.
And when Charlotte's compared to children even younger, like her 6-month-old cousin Rebecca, the difference is even more noticeable.
I'm going to take this off. Try it on you. What's he doing? He's too big.
Charlotte's just like a living doll. I dressed my sister in my doll's clothes.
Shopping for a 2-year-old who's only the size of a newborn is difficult for Mum Emma and Grandma Linda.
Life itself is so different from a normal child.
She's in newborn clothes now.
Newborn clothes, which is a milestone for her to have got into newborn clothes because it took us so long to get her out of premature.
That is so cute.
I know. If it was in newborn, it'd probably be all right.
Just look at those.
I know, they'd go lovely together, wouldn't they? Can you imagine what she's going to be like when she's 15 years old and we still have to bring her to mother care and places like that to be able to get her clothes?
You're going to have to learn to sew.
But learning to adapt to Charlotte's size is the least of her family's worries, because as yet, doctors have been unable to pinpoint exactly which condition Charlotte has. This means her future is unknown.
It's very difficult to make a definite diagnosis for a child who appears clinically to have primordial dwarfism. It's quite often the case in genetics that we're not able to make a diagnosis immediately on a newborn baby. Primordial dwarfism is an umbrella term, and it's got a number of different subcategories, and these different subcategories do have a different life expectancy for the children.
We'll put sockies on.
Charlotte may have a rare form of primordial dwarfism called MOPD Type 2. This condition affects approximately 100 children worldwide. Children with Type 2 can suffer from brain aneurysms which cause strokes. The only way to detect and then treat the aneurysms is to have regular MRI brain scans.
Because Charlotte's not been diagnosed yet, Charlotte cannot have the MRI scan, purely because she doesn't have a diagnosis. If she's to get a diagnosis of MOPD2, then she can have the MRI scan to detect whether she does have any start of any sort of aneurysms or anything like that.
If Charlotte does have this condition, as long as she has regular MRI scans, there is hope.
So the life expectancy in MOPD2, I think, is perhaps changing a little bit. In the last couple of years, we've made some strides in determining what are associated medical complications and are working to try to fix those problems so that they don't, in fact, take lives away. As time goes on, the life expectancy is going to rise, and hopefully we'll see a lot of people in their 60s and 70s in the future.
But there is a possibility that Charlotte has the rarest and most deadly form of primordial dwarfism, MOPD Type 1.
To my knowledge, there are somewhere just under 20 kids with this disorder that have been published in the literature. I've seen 3 children that I'm convinced have this. And essentially all of them have died younger than the age of 3.
You ready?
If Charlotte is diagnosed with Type 1, she may have less than 12 months to live.
My fear is that by the time we found out what Charlotte does have, it could be too late.
As Charlotte first approaches her second birthday, getting a diagnosis is becoming more crucial. If she has Type 2, she could already be developing potentially fatal brain aneurysms. But if she has Type 1, the family will need to prepare themselves for life without the tiniest girl in the world.
It really doesn't bear thinking about, doesn't the fact that we might not have her?
Exactly.
Charlotte Garside has an undiagnosed form of primordial dwarfism. Age 2, she weighs the same as an average newborn baby. But her size is not the only thing that makes her different from her peers.
Morning, Charlotte. You okay? You're going to do some good work today. Right then, should we get you out?
Developmental delay is seen in some of the children because of their small size, and that may well make it difficult for them to develop at a normal rate.
Charlotte has monthly physiotherapy sessions to help her become more mobile.
Charlotte is still not talking, and she's not walking.
Obviously, we know that Charlotte's a little bit delayed in her milestones, as we would expect her to do, and she's making brilliant improvements, but she's still just lacking her independent standing, and obviously with that will then come her cruising ability along the furniture and her walking, and those are the things that really we're aiming towards, but we know that it's much more realistic to think that Charlotte will do those things as she gets a little bit older.
Charlotte's been different from other children since the day she was conceived. When Mum Emma was pregnant with Charlotte, there was no indication that anything was wrong. But when Emma went into labour, doctors questioned her due date.
This doctor that came to see me, he said to me, he said, "How many weeks are you?" I says, "I'm nearly 36 weeks. And he says, "Are you sure of your dates?" And I said, "Yes." And he says, "Well, you're only measuring 24 weeks. Your baby is going to be extremely small, needs special care, so we need to get her out."
Following an emergency caesarean, Charlotte was born weighing just £1 11 ounces.
Now, I was quite upset at the fact that she was so small, because to me, when they said I was going to have a small baby, I expected £3 or £4, because the others have weighed nearly £8 when they've been born, so £3 or £4 small. But £1 11 is minute to what I'd have expected. And then when I did actually see her, it was an emotion that you can never imagine, to have a child that looks so vulnerable and so small as what she did. All you could see was a head.
Charlotte was only 4 weeks premature, but she was the size of a baby born 16 weeks early and was taken to the intensive care unit.
You look at her when she was in her incubator and she just looked all skin and bones. The best way to describe her would be that she looked like a skinned rabbit. Her legs were as thin as your fingers, and she just looked like if you'd picked her up, she would have just snapped in two. She was so small. But I did think that maybe the worst could happen. You know, does it mean that she's not going to live?
But it wasn't just Scott and Emma who were shocked by Charlotte's size. Her 3 older sisters were amazed that at just 10 inches long, Charlotte was the same size as their teddy bears.
In this picture, Charlotte's got that little teddy bear.
It shows me how small she was, because she was just a bit bigger than that, and you would think for a normal baby that she would be so small.
Scott's parents, Rose and Frank, feared the worst when they first saw their tiny grandchild.
I just didn't know whether she was going to survive or not, you know, we're not knowing what she had. We didn't, you know, at the time they didn't say it was dwarfism or anything. And when I first seen her just laid there, the shock just sort of like set me back a bit.
While Charlotte's family feared for her life, doctors thought her size was due to a rare genetic condition. Dr. Emma Hobson, a clinical geneticist, was called in to give her expert opinion.
When I first saw Charlotte, I felt that the diagnosis was very likely to be a form of primordial dwarfism, firstly because of her tiny size, then because of her appearance. She had quite a prominent nose and little small eyes and a little chin. And these various features, although taken in isolation, are perhaps part of the normal range. When they're put together as the total appearance, her face very much suggested that was going to be the diagnosis.
The automatic reaction was to walk out of the hospital, phone Scott, and I just burst into tears on the phone to Scott. I says, "You better get here now." I says, "They're saying there's something wrong with Charlotte." I didn't want to make it seem real, I suppose. And I didn't want it to be real that there was something wrong with her. I just wanted her to have looked the way that she did because she was just small.
Charlotte spent the first 3 months of her life in hospital, and when she came home, she still weighed little more than 2 pounds.
Charlotte's condition means that, you know, she's genetically predisposed to grow at a slow rate and be a small person.
Like most children with this condition, Charlotte's slow growth was further hindered as she was having difficulty digesting milk, and the trauma of constantly being sick led to her refusing her bottle.
She won't open her mouth for any food. She's got a locked jaw, and she just keeps a jaw locked so you can't open it.
When Charlotte was 4 months old, she was fitted with a nasogastric tube through which a high-calorie, nutritious formula could be fed via her nose directly into her stomach.
Well, the way I eat is I eat through my mouth and it goes down through my throat, but the way my sister eats, it goes straight through her nose.
As a short-term measure, we quite often use in babies the nasogastric tube, but on a longer-term basis, that's not very satisfactory, and it's easier and better for the child if we can directly put the food into the tummy, and that's done through the gastrostomy tube.
Today, Charlotte's in hospital to have her nasogastric feeding tube removed and to have a gastrostomy. This surgical procedure will insert a feeding tube directly into her stomach.
I won't be able to count on my hands how many times she's been in hospital because she's been in hospital that many times.
Since birth, Charlotte has gained less than 5 pounds, the equivalent of 2 bags of sugar.
Daddy can weigh you.
She is being weighed so that the anaesthetist can calculate how much anaesthetic she will need. Being put under general anaesthetic presents more risks for Charlotte because she's so small.
Okay, patient Annie.
Bit apprehensive. Just want everything to go okay, to make sure nothing initially goes wrong, and that she just gets through it okay, and that there's no problems initially with the operation itself.
Emma and Scott know full well that some children with Charlotte's condition have suffered cardiac arrest while being put to sleep.
Should be all right. Bit scary, I suppose. First time it being done. Just try to fight it with him, which is just like Charlotte, but I suppose it takes hold, doesn't it? And she just finally went to sleep. I think it is emotion because it's been building up, but I think it's purely because it's been so long waited for. Because it's not normal for a child not to eat, and it's something that I suppose we feel that she needs, don't we? She needs to have a better quality of life, which she's obviously going to get with having a gastrostomy done.
An endoscopic camera is used to see where the tube, commonly known as a peg, will be inserted. Charlotte is so small, the bright light of the endoscope can be seen glowing inside her stomach.
The operation's the worst bit, I suppose, but it's not something that we see, and we just see the after effect, which will be better. We don't like the tube on her face, do we, really? We've had enough of that now. It's just really scary.
Off we go.
Finally, 2 hours later, the operation is over and Charlotte is reunited with her parents.
Well, Grandad can come and see you in a minute, can't he, look? She looks different because she doesn't have the tape and the tube in her nose anymore. Looks so much better.
Charlotte will be monitored in the critical care unit to make sure there are no complications with this new method of feeding. But just 48 hours later, Charlotte's health deteriorates.
Her neck had started turning a little bit yellow, and it was later on in that day that they actually came to tell us that she had a problem with her liver, which had caused her to go jaundice. So they were planning on her having a scan on her liver, which meant that she needed to stay in for longer.
The ultrasound scan reveals Charlotte has cysts on the bile ducts in her liver. Known as Caroli disease, this congenital condition is sometimes found in children with one of the rarest types of primordial dwarfism.
The liver here, and then these are the black bits are the sort of fluid-containing structures.
Scott and Emma have a meeting with Dr. McLean, a consultant paediatrician who specialises in diseases of the liver.
I think because it's affecting the whole liver, we aren't going to be able to do anything about it surgically.
Yeah.
What we would to do at the moment is just try to maintain as good of a flow of bile out of the liver as we can. Because the main problem we have with this is getting infection. And if that goes on happening and keeps happening, it can cause ultimately damage to the liver.
Thanks very much. Thank you, bye.
This is devastating news for Scott and Emma. Liver cysts are a symptom of the form of primordial dwarfism with the shortest life expectancy, type 1. Emma's learning to cope with the fact that her daughter's health problems are genetic.
I felt that it could have been my fault. But then on the other hand, I sat there and thought, well, if it is a genetic condition, it is my fault why she is like she is. But I didn't want to put blame on myself, because if you put blame on yourself, you're then going to feel guilty, and then you're going to sit there and ponder on it, and you'll never be able to get on with life and enjoy the child like you should.
Charlotte will be on medication for the rest of her life to prevent her liver becoming infected. In less than 2 weeks, Scott and Emma will be attending the Walking with Giants convention, where they will meet the world's leading expert in primordial dwarfism. Everyone in Charlotte's family is hoping this will lead to a diagnosis.
I think I'd prefer to know, and no doubt you and Emma would as well, like, you know what I mean? Once you find out what type it is, then you can start doing stuff about it then.
Attending the convention will be an opportunity for Scott, Emma and the girls to meet other children like Charlotte and their families. Could this give them an insight into what the future may hold for Charlotte? Charlotte Garside is nearly 2, but she only weighs just over 7 pounds. That's 21 pounds less than an average girl her age. At 22 inches tall, she's half the height she should be. Charlotte has an undiagnosed form of the genetic condition primordial dwarfism, and her parents are desperate to find out which type she has.
At the moment, we're in the dark, I think, to be quite honest. My fear is that by the time we found out what Charlotte does have, it could be too late.
But Scott and Emma will hopefully have an answer soon. Tomorrow, Charlotte and her family will be attending the annual Walking with Giants convention for families with primordial dwarfism. They all find great support from meeting others who have children with the same condition.
It'll be interesting for kids to see the other kids, won't it, then?
It will, yeah.
Hi, Charlotte. Are you looking forward to going? I go see some new friends. Yeah.
This year is particularly special as Dr. Michael Bober, one of the world's leading experts in dwarfism, is also attending.
Going to see Dr. Bober. It'll be a good thing.
That's the best one, isn't it?
It certainly is. We'll possibly find out what's wrong. Yes.
Yeah. Families from all over Europe have descended upon Liverpool for the Walking with Giants convention.
It makes me feel good, so I know that Charlotte's not alone and that she's not the only one with primordial dwarfism.
The good thing that we enjoy about coming to the conventions is that the older children get to see children who are Charlotte's age, who are even their own age, and they can look at the other children and they can think, well, my sister's going to be, if not the same size, smaller than what they are.
Children with primordial dwarfism are some of the smallest children in the world. There are not many other conditions that would make a child that very small.
Most of the children here with primordial dwarfism have siblings of average stature. Alex is 4, but he's only as tall as the average 2-year-old. His older sister Jess finds meeting the other families very therapeutic.
I really like coming to conventions like this because I get to talk to other people about how I feel. sometimes you think you're learning that your sister is the only one like it, and then when you go to conventions and that, then you know you're not alone.
I know she can't talk to us about Charlotte. She'll find it hard to talk to us about Charlotte because our day-to-day life evolves around Charlotte. So it'd be nice for her to sit there and speak to Jess and say, oh, well, I've got so-and-so, so-and-so. Have you had this problem with Alex?
I like getting attention, but Charlotte has the most attention because of her condition. It really annoys me.
Have you told your mum?
No.
Why don't you tell her to get her to take you out somewhere then?
But children like Charlotte also attract negative attention, and even 5-year-old Sophie has noticed.
When people walk past, they always laugh at Charlotte. And when they laugh and they say, oh, Charlotte's, look at that baby, that baby's small, and then they just walk away.
How does that make you feel?
It makes me sad.
Charlotte's got quite a strong set of sisters behind her that are going to look after her when she gets older, which I think she needs as well, especially in the community and the world nowadays, the way that people and children can be saying hurtful things. They always say that if anyone picks on her, then they'll have them to answer to, and I'm hoping that they will be role models for their sister. It's nice to know what other families have experienced with their children growing up, because at the moment, with Charlotte being nearly 2 years old, all she can do is sit up. She has mental ability of a 12 to 15-month-old child, but her physical ability is that of a 6 to 9-month-old.
Just like you.
Scott has become friends with Robbie. His son Liam, unlike most children with the condition, has never had a problem eating. But although he's only 5, Liam knows that some of his friends have to be fed differently.
What's this then, Charlotte? What's this for? What's that? And what's the tube for? So she gets your fingers out of your mouth. Yeah, so that tube goes inside the belly and she gets a dinner.
Yeah?
Yeah, well, is this your dinner? No, you had your dinner, you don't eat your fingers then, do you?
Tonight, a well-known soap star is making a surprise visit to offer his support to the charity.
I'd like to introduce him now, Bruce Jones, aka Les Battersby. Cannot thank you enough for coming up. Thank you.
I think the giants anyway.
Yes, and that's...
It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm proud to be here. I've never heard of this charity in my life before.
For someone to walk in off the streets and not know the situation that they're walking into, to then walk into a room that's full of little people, I think it's quite a shock to the system.
Oh my, is that your daughter?
Yes.
How old is she? 2. I'd be friends of picking her up.
Come on, Charlotte. Are you sure I'm okay?
Of course you are.
Oh, look at that. And she's 2 years of age.
She is, yeah.
Amongst all the kids, it was only the last minute I saw her. And then I looked down and I thought, oh, it's someone's doll. Someone's left a doll on the floor, and then I seen her move, and I went, oh. And then I just got to go over and hello, what's her name?
Bruce meets 12-year-old Rima, who has MOPD Type 2. She developed brain aneurysms as a side effect of the condition. But as she was undiagnosed until the age of 10, the aneurysms went undetected, resulting in her having more than 30 strokes.
MOPD stands for microcephalic, which means a small head, osteodysplastic, which means a problem with the bones, primordial, dwarfism.
You dance, go on, you dance.
In MOPD Type 2, the children are born very small. Also, those children are thought to have the vascular problems in the brain and therefore at risk of the brain hemorrhages.
They couldn't diagnose till she turned 10. They found out she was MOPD Type 2.
When Rima had her first stroke, she was the same age as Charlotte is now.
Most of her brain is damaged now from all the strokes she had.
Just 12 weeks after the convention, Rima died following another stroke. Scott and Emma are desperate for a diagnosis for their daughter, as she may have the same condition and be at risk of having a stroke. Today, Emma and Scott may at last be told what condition their daughter has, because they're about to meet with Dr. Bober, a leading expert in dwarfism.
Hey there. How you doing?
Not too bad.
Mike Bober, hi.
Hi.
Hi. And this must be Miss Charlotte, huh?
It is.
Because Dr. Bober's one of the leading specialists in the world.
So I've just woke up.
Lucky her.
Oh. He understands all the different features and similarities and all the things that go with the condition. So he may well be able to say to us, just by looking at Charlotte, Charlotte looks like she has got so-and-so, so-and-so. Dr. Bober is, in theory, our only hope to find out what it is that Charlotte has.
How old is she? When was her birthday?
Her birthday is the 19th of August, 2007.
Dr. Bober reviews Charlotte's case notes and takes measurements.
33.4.
But one element of Charlotte's case history is of particular interest to the doctor.
So she has cysts on the liver?
She does, yeah.
After an intensive hour of questioning, Dr. Bober is finally ready to comment on Charlotte's condition.
Her general size and stature is consistent with an MOPD Type 2 diagnosis.
Right.
But there's some things that are a little bit different.
Right.
That I'm not sure that I'm comfortable being that precise at this moment. There is a form of primordial dwarfism that's called MOPD Type 1.
Yeah.
And that is a much more severe disorder than MOPD 2. And she's a little bit large for that diagnosis. But those children do have liver cysts.
Right.
MOPD 1 is a much more serious diagnosis. These children have far more severe problems because the brain itself really has major malformations.
Children with a diagnosis of MOPD Type 1 have a shortened life expectancy, maybe a life expectancy only into early childhood.
I've seen 3 children that I'm convinced have this. And essentially all of them have died younger than the age of 3.
Dr. Bober wants Charlotte to undergo an MRI scan of her brain, as it will either confirm or rule out the possibility that she has Type 1.
It's a vital thing that we need to do, the MRI, because then we can then figure out what life is going to be for Charlotte.
Maybe this is primordial dwarfism, Charlotte type.
Yeah. You've given us a very good insight.
Yeah, definitely.
You're very welcome.
Even though you cannot definitely say what is wrong, you've given us something to look forward to work with, to help us to get what we want out for Charlotte. And I'm so grateful.
Yeah, you're welcome. And that's enough.
At the moment, numbers are irrelevant until we know for certain. Quite a hard thing to sit and think about, because you don't have your kids to think of them that they're going to die, which is something that no matter what, we will have to think about.
While Scott and Emma wait for an MRI scan to find out whether their daughter has the rarest and most deadly form of primordial dwarfism, they're trying to stay optimistic and preparing to celebrate her second birthday. Today's a very special day for the tiniest girl in the world. It's Charlotte Garside's second birthday, but after receiving the news that she may have MOPD Type 1, a rare form of dwarfism which comes with an extremely short life expectancy, the celebrations take on a different meaning.
We're a bit nearer knowing, and you can plan a bit better.
Yeah, I suppose we don't know what the MRI is going to say. You know, if it is to turn around and say she's got MOPD1, we could be looking at the last birthday that we do for her, which is the reason why, I suppose, even to her first birthday, we made extra special, because you never know which one's going to be the last one.
We make the most of her while we've got her.
Yep.
It's the main thing. I mean, I don't want it to be MOPD1. It really doesn't bear thinking about, doesn't the fact that we might not have her.
Exactly.
The only way to find out if Charlotte has this rare condition is for her to undergo an MRI brain scan. But the family is still waiting for an appointment date.
If we don't carry on as though she's going to be here forever, then it's not fair on Scott and the other children. Certainly not fair on you. And it's not fair on Charlotte. We've just got to make it, as special as we can while we've got her.
Emma and Scott want Charlotte to be like the other children at the party and have a special treat.
So it's special because Charlotte doesn't tend to eat anything through her mouth, but she likes ice cream. So I'm going to give her stuff that she likes, aren't we?
Yeah. I think it's amazing that my sister gets to reach 2, because some people, when they're born and they're very, very small, they don't get to live to the age of 2, and I think my sister's one of the lucky ones.
1, 2, 3. Yay!
2 months after their meeting with the American dwarfism specialist Dr. Bober, Charlotte arrives at Hull Hospital to have a scan of her brain performed. Emma's mum Linda has come along to offer her support.
How are you feeling?
I'm a bit worried about what they're going to do today, I suppose, and what they're going to find, because I suppose it's going to be the deadline, it's going to be the D bit that makes everything
fall into place.
Yeah.
After being sedated, Charlotte is taken to the MRI scanner. Emma will stay with her daughter throughout the 30 minutes it takes to scan her brain. The scan will help narrow down Charlotte's diagnosis by either confirming or eliminating whether she has type 1.
An MRI allows us to look at the brain in slices, in sections, and look at the different parts of the brain and see whether there's any structural problems with the brain.
A radiologist will need to examine Charlotte's brain images to look for the major brain abnormalities associated with type 1, and the results will be given to the family in a week from now.
We'll just have to wait for your results now, darling, won't we?
A major event has occurred in Charlotte's life. She started nursery.
Oh, getting stuck.
Hiya. She goes for a few hours to play with little kids, so she can mix and see what real life's like and learn things.
Initially the children were a little bit shocked, I think, about Charlotte, but then they just got on with it and they all played together and were interacting with each other, and I think it was good for all the children, actually.
What's that?
He's eating all his dinners out today, don't we?
What's that?
It's nice to know that she's going to be sat there learning from children who are a bit more advanced than what they should be, because it means that she's going to sit there and she's going to look, oh, well, if they can do that, then I can do that.
But while Charlotte is enjoying spending time with her friends at nursery, her future is resting on the outcome of her MRI scan. It's been an anxious week for Scott and Emma. Today they are back at the hospital to find out whether Charlotte has a rare but deadly form of primordial dwarfism called MOPD Type 1.
I'm really nervous about today.
Hello.
Hi. I am nervous because I don't want her to have MOPD Type 1 because I don't want her to die really young.
Charlotte's paediatrician, Dr. Matthew, gives Scott and Emma the results.
You haven't heard anything about the head scan results?
Haven't heard nothing whatsoever.
An MRI scans of children like Charlotte is very rare, in a very specialized field.
A diagnosis of Type 1 could mean that Charlotte has less than a year to live. If she's got Type 2, she's likely to make it into adulthood.
I can see roughly what they are saying. There are lots of minor changes in the brain structure, which I think would fit in with MOPD Type 2.
Right.
Type 1 has been ruled out, and a diagnosis of Type 2 is looking more likely. But Mum Emma is worried by the news that Charlotte has minor brain abnormalities.
Could this change her life expectancy?
No.
Right, so her life expectancy would, if she's MOPD 2, would be normal for MOPD 2.
Yeah.
Then I suppose we know we've got 30 years at least.
Yeah.
Do you feel relieved now?
I do, yeah.
Good, I do as well. It felt like a big weight had been lifted when he'd said that, because then that means that we know that we can carry on now.
But there's more good news. Once Charlotte has a definitive diagnosis, regular screening can begin to ensure she lives as long a life as possible.
If it turns out that she's MOPD 2, she needs a special scan to look at blood vessels to detect aneurysms. We can then plan for these kind of tests in the future.
Thank you.
Cheers, thank you. See ya.
So pleased.
Yeah, it's good news, isn't it?
Certainly is, yeah.
Definitely.
Charlotte's determined to make the most of life, and to the delight of her family, has reached a major developmental milestone.
Something amazing has happened in the past few days because Charlotte's just started to crawl.
She just started putting her hands in front of each other and just shuffling her legs. And then all of a sudden, she just started to crawl.
Although she should have started crawling more than a year ago, developing this important motor skill shows that Charlotte may well have the mental and physical ability to enjoy life to the full.
She can now get places than just sitting down. And the funny thing about it is whenever she crawls, she always goes to the toys.
It does give me hope soon that she will be walking. Made me feel quite excited, really.
You're being a little clever girl, aren't you? Still got a long way to go, but it's now time to get on with life, I think. Stop dwelling and stop thinking about the what-ifs. Make her life full to the max.
Next week's Extraordinary People follows British doctors who travel to Vietnam to perform remarkable surgery on 7 faces. Next tonight, 5 documents the chilling career of serial killer Arthur Shawcross, who struck fear into the hearts of New Yorkers in the late 80s, a crime that shook the world in just a moment.